It's great to be back. It's very honoured to be invited back here after last year, and I'm just very sorry I brought the weather from London with me. This is the only bad part is the rain, but I'm used to it, so it's okay. And I think for us, it's not just from last year, but Turkey is one of the most exciting markets for us. I know everyone comes here saying this as well, but it's true, right? It's a very young industry here. Everyone is young, everyone is very open-minded as well, which I think is exciting for us. And the level of creativity is fantastic, and people are very receptive to our message, which is really using the best ideas in the world to deliver great work, right? And that is very exciting, and hopefully what I can do is bring some of the ideas that we're seeing from other markets and really plant those seeds here in Istanbul and in Turkey. Well, I think it depends on what level you're looking at. I think on individual pieces of creative work, there is no such thing anymore as a leader and a follower in terms of countries or whole markets, right? There are individual people, individual campaigns, individual pieces of work, which, no matter where they come from, are just connect with people, and that's very exciting. As you say, perhaps Turkey is not setting the trends yet, but I think those days are just around the corner, and the opportunity is there. I think we've seen over the past couple of years, especially take for example the Asian messaging apps, WeChat, etc., which are really going global, Line, etc., etc. And more and more there is a realization that the traditional innovation flow from North America, from Europe, out to the rest of the world is at a tipping point, and it's going to be reversed very soon. So I think it's an exciting opportunity for Turkish brands. Yeah, so the video valet trend is really using live, real-time, on-demand video chat to improve the customer experience, right? Often through customer service, but it can be in other ways too. And this is a classic example of, like so many trends, the basic need has always been there, the desire to interact with someone, the desire to speak to someone about a problem you might have, or etc. But the technology has been there in other areas. So people are using Skype, they're using FaceTime, whatever. And we're starting to see, brands especially look at and ask themselves, how can they deploy this same technology in creative ways to solve a problem, right? E-commerce, the digital world obviously opens up many great opportunities, but it also has certain frustrations, right? And live chat or sending an email to a company and not knowing if they've received it, or is one of those frustrations. And so really, the trend in and of itself is maybe not the biggest, right? It's not like every brand has to go and instigate live video chat in 2015 or it'll fail. We're not saying that, but we're saying it is a great example of taking a technology which exists, which consumers are becoming more and more familiar with, and deploying it in a way which genuinely makes things better for people. Well, I think there's a really interesting shift happening, and especially for your readers, is the blurring of the line between marketing and service, because everything is marketing now, and equally marketing should be a service. I think the old days of the campaign just being about creative and just communicating a message is actually quite limiting now. And I think the best brands and the best agencies are thinking about, how can we turn our marketing into a service, a genuinely useful service? Because of all of these trends which we know about, which are the rise of social media, the empowering of consumers, etc., etc. These are changing the way we need to think about marketing. And that's why we're in the lucky position of watching and spotting the trends. We are always hugely mindful that your readers and the clients have the hard job of making these work, right? But I think the reality is the environment we're in today is that consumers don't care. Right, and that consumers don't care about your operational difficulties, about your departmental silos, or who has to sign this off, and the biggest challenge for brands is that once consumers hear about this, they start to very quickly, quicker than ever, ask why they are not getting that level of experience, and in that sense, everyone has to be the best of the best, because of this dispersion of information, because of the transparency, more and more, as I said in the presentation, the person getting in a car doesn't look at the in-car stereo and compare it to other automotive brands. They compare it to their iPhone. That is the comparison is to the best, not to what is easy for the industry to compare itself to. And there are no easy answers to that. I think the biggest challenge facing brands today. Yeah, and I think again and again we see it with consumers. If there are no alternatives, will often have to tolerate poor service. Whether it's telcos, whether it's banks, etc. But the risk, as we've seen in so many industries, the entertainment industry, the newspaper industry, is the moment there is an option to do something different, to deliver that same need, people will just stop. You look at the newspaper industries. You could argue, it wasn't what each newspaper was doing. It was when Facebook came along and gave you a new source to get your news from your friends, which is more relevant. People just stop buying, right? And I think the most dangerous thing a brand can do today is to just look at its competitors, because at the end of the day, consumers have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of money, and where they are trying to do certain things to entertain themselves, to look good, to stay informed, to be treated fairly, to share information with the people that matter to them, whatever it is. But if they find an alternative, better way of doing that, you can be the best in your sector and still not be protected, So it's so I think we come back to again and again looking at the shared experiences of everyone as human beings, right? And there are certain core, basic, fundamental, universal human needs, as we've touched on above. The desire for status, the desire to look good amongst your peers, the desire to be treated fairly, the need to entertain yourself. I mean, this is still a basic need as well. The desire to not cause harm, you could argue, is a basic, human desire. What we're not saying, of course, is that there is a universal culture. I think that's naive to say that. Of course, Istanbul is different to London, right? Of course, culture, life stage, etc. But those differences are, in some senses, they are weakening. But also, I think the best brands look beyond those differences and try and understand the core need, because that will allow them to understand the basic of what they're trying to communicate. Yes, there's the timeliness, the thing that is different this year to 3 years ago, but it's that core which makes you a very strong brand and very strong connection with customers as predictive, right? And I think, obviously, in some senses, it's an obvious statement to make. Ever since they were first formulated, we've always known that demographics are unsatisfactory. But I think, both in the ability to serve ever more thinly sliced demographics, but also, as we've seen, this idea that there are increasingly shared practices. I think social media is a classic example. 5-6 years ago, people were like, oh, as kids, they want to share stuff, but you'll grow out of it. And now, you know, the fastest growing demographic on Twitter is the 55 plus demographic. You know, Facebook, 50% of over 50-year-olds are now on Facebook in the US. You know, this is services which apparently were designed for or cater to young demographics, we actually see often are not, right? And obviously technology, you know, is one dimension, but as we've seen also, you know, in other spheres, it is translating. Maybe a little slower, but it is translating. Well, you know, I think the key is doing it in the right way, right? And you know, we see people, again, whether it's through discounts or whether it rewards, you know, people often do sign up and do share information with brands. I think there is a very fine line between freaking people out and utility, making things useful, and you know, I think some of the we will actually learn as a society and as a, you know, as business people where that line is, and it will be different in different sectors. It will be different for different people within a culture. It will be different in different cultures, and I suspect actually it will be different for the same person with two different brands, right? You know, you may be very happy giving a lot of your information to one brand, but you would hate for another brand to give it. You know, it's there's no one perfect context. You know, people love to be told, I think, you know, this is the golden ticket, this will be successful. But, you know, there are so many factors at play, as you said, operational, logistically, brand-wise, you know, but and I think, you know, it's we will have to test it, and there will be missteps along the way, I'm sure. But, you know, I think there is interesting. I mean, one of the examples we use in that is in the train station, using, you know, passively sourcing information from people's Bluetooth to identify how full each train carriage is. So to tell people where to stand, you know, to have a better experience. And I think, you know, the key for the marketing industry and business in general is, you know, to not necessarily put your needs first, but put the customer's needs first. You know, too often, and it's such a truism, and every business says they do it, but I think the difference is, you know, and consumers are not stupid, they feel it. Which businesses are doing this because it's better for them, for their profit margin, makes life easier for their staff, and which businesses are doing it because they actually improve the customer experience. On the site we have a link to the spotter network. It's spotters.trendwatching.com, and people can apply. Victoria, my colleague who is here, she runs the network, and we're actually meeting up with some of our spotters later this evening in a bar, and really what we ask is to send us, you know, things which you think are interesting, you know, things which resonate with you. And it really is, when we ask requests, so often we will say, you know, we've seen this trend emerging in you know, in New York and London. Have you seen it in so, or more interestingly, actually, the sympathetic pricing trend came from Brazil, actually. So that was our Brazilian team. They said, we're really seeing a lot of brands. There are a lot of pain points in life in Brazil. You know, life is difficult. We're really seeing some brands being very proactive in this. And when we asked the spotter network, here are 3 examples from Brazil, you know, are you seeing similar? We suddenly said people saying, oh yeah, you know, I see this happening as well. And sometimes it can just help to think of things in a new way. You know, as I said in my presentation, we have so much hitting us every day. Everyone does, you know, from campaign, from your newsletter, from your Twitter feed, you know, everything. And sometimes it just helps to put consumers at the heart of it and say, okay, why do these 5 things all give a different flavor on better service for consumers, you know? And that's really what we try. So, you know, hopefully we get a lot of value out of a network, and it's fantastic for us, but also, you know, I know a lot of the spotters enjoy it because us asking the question can sometimes help them feel, I see this already, I just needed a help.